Okay, everybody. Diego is on the way. Diego is always on. Yeah. Okay, everybody.
Like the last 10 years, I think there were some really, I hope there were some stuff going on.
Let's take about 10 minutes before we start what we're supposed to start and talk about the Israeli healthcare system, just to bring everyone up to date. In previous years, I had a whole session on the Israeli healthcare system, and I was saying to people over here that for the international students, they took a course in health policy that focused on the Israeli healthcare system. They told me that they had more than they ever wanted to know about the Israeli healthcare system, so I dropped it out of this course, okay? But now the word I got is that what they got was relatively confusing, so let's just take 10 minutes and talk about the Israeli healthcare system in the context of the other health systems that we're talking about, okay? And Shauli and Rania are gonna help me, particularly with my mistakes, okay? All right. No, it's okay.
He knows well about the history of the system.
Well, and the first thing is talk about the history, okay? So, Israel's formed in 1948. There's a significant migration of Jews who come here before 1948. And what's their political philosophy?
Socialism.
Socialism. They're socialists. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Okay. And the movement is primarily called Zionism, and Zionism and socialism are not necessarily the same, but there is a coincidence. And many of these people came and formed these living communities that we've talked about and all know about, called kibbutzim, which are, to me, a form of relatively pure communism. And the labor movement here was very powerful as Israel is created, and as a consequence, the labor movement was very preoccupied, understandably, with the creation of healthcare coverage for everybody. Later today, we're going to talk about health insurance and the concepts of insurance and risk, so I'm not going to get into that. We're just going to talk about the Israeli healthcare system. So it starts with, to me, a very socialist approach. The whole country was essentially a socialist, philosophically socialist. So as we do our classic little left to right business, I would say Israel is over here from good morning. From a societal perspective, Israel was over here. And for the healthcare system, likewise. So if it was socialized, that would mean what? Who owned things? Government. Government owned everything. Hospitals, whatever hospitals there were. I've done more work in Nahariya at the Galilee Medical Center than any other place. And in those days, as I understand it, it was a bunch of flats. And started as an obstetric hospital because getting your woman in labor to deliver here in Haifa was way too long of a ride on a bumpy road. And so things are very simple. I was telling Lynn that I didn't express a big interest in the Israeli healthcare system as I was learning about health systems because it's complicated. It's one of the more complicated, I think, one of the more complicated systems of healthcare. And so I just sort of said, fine, I'm not going to bother understanding it. Well, I hope you understand it somewhat now. Okay. So what's happened, to put it simply, is like everything else in the world, it's moved to the right. Okay, as a reaction to the rejection of socialism and this government ownership, and we're all in it together, the last holdouts of socialism tend to be the Scandinavian countries, it would seem. And those stubborn communist countries that are resistant to, so far, resistant to change, like Cuba, let's say. But everybody else has moved to the right, and so has the Israeli healthcare system. Now, it's not over here. Okay, it is not privatized like the Swiss healthcare system, or even quite the French healthcare system, or for sure the US healthcare system. I would say it's kind of in the middle. So, where does, so who owns the healthcare system? Well, let's turn it around for a minute and talk about insurance. So, Charlie, how many kinds of insurance do you have? Three. Okay? 3. There's a basic insurance that is covered universally. Everyone gets this basic insurance. Okay? And it provides, from my perspective, it provides adequate care, and anything above and beyond that is more consumer-friendly oriented care. So, and in fact, the sicker you are, the more you get the services of the first level of care. So, as a foreign worker in Israel, employed by the University of Haifa, I have Clalit as the sole source of my health care here. And in the U.S., it would be like an HMO. If I get sick, I need to go see a doctor. I need to call before I go to the emergency department. That doctor has to clear me. I have the good fortune of having actually no experience with the Israeli, personal experience with the Israeli healthcare system yet. I'm not looking forward to it if I need it. I have American healthcare insurance. Okay, so that's the first level. And again, if you've got cancer, if you need surgery, if you've had a heart attack, you're covered. Everybody gets taken care of. Then the second level of care is
what's the complementary policies offered by the same HMOs?
right. Okay, and approximately 80% of the population gets that second level of care.
You have to buy it.
You buy
So about 2/3 to 3/4 of the population buys it. Those who don't are obviously the poor, the elderly, etc. And that allows for things like choosing your surgeon. So my son had to go through a tonsillectomy, and I wanted a certain physician to do it. So you could choose the surgeon, you could choose where to do it, you have more options, and there are additional coverages for abundance of things like different orthopedic devices. If you have, flat feet and you need certain, whatever you call them, put in your shoes. So a lot of peripheral things.
But I think,
I only want to add that the fees are, there's a constant fee for everybody, for these specialists, and not all specialists are accessible.
Mm-hmm.
Only those who are willing to accept according to this kind of system. If they have
this is the first level.
Second.
No,
Second level.
Yeah. So even second level have to work in accordance with the price list for the semi-private
Yes.
medicine.
It's also shorter amount of time to reach the surgeon or the specialist. It's also covered in surgeries in private hospitals.
Okay, so we'll talk over the next week about rationing of care, and you've heard me say that care is rationed everywhere. In the United States, how is it rationed?
Managed care.
So if I ask any question you don't know the answer to about the United States, the answer is
For the rich.
money.
Huh.
Money, okay? So care is rationed by money, okay? If you pay enough, you get whatever, okay? And that's oversimplified. It's also geographically rationed. It's rationed by race, cultural group, okay? We in the United States don't admit that, but just look at the statistics. But most places, Sweden, is rationed by what?
Simplicity.
Waiting. Everybody waits. Everybody's treated the same. Everybody waits. Okay? And so, if you got a bad cold and you have to wait 2 weeks, what's going to happen? Cold's going to go away. You know that. You don't buy them. Okay? Right? So there is a natural selection process in waiting. Okay. So if you are an Israeli and you only have the first level of insurance, then you have to wait. But if you're really sick, you don't have to wait. And if you're not sick, you're not gonna bother to wait, you just give up, okay? Or maybe not, you'll limp along, either literally or figuratively. Okay, what's the third level of care?
There is private health insurance policies.
Owned by about 20% of the population?
Just about 20% of the population. And they're provided by insurance companies that are for profit. That's a completely private health insurance. And for individuals like myself who are very averse to risk, you just buy them all.
Right, right. And that's what wealthier people in Israel do. So the upper middle class and some of the middle class and the upper class are going to buy that third level of insurance. And if you work for a relatively wealthy company or successful company, likewise you will get that. You might get it as a benefit.
There is another category of the population, which are the people who are present in Israel, but not citizens. They can buy this kind of,
Yeah,
like people who are, because we are living in a country that is really diverse,
yes.
and we have our own issues here. People who are married from the West Bank, for example, we have more than 100,000 people.
Yeah.
So those who did not get a status in Israel, they buy it, and it's expensive. It's not, and it doesn't cover everything. So
What's the company name?
they get the same services in Clarit, in the
Yeah, Harel?
For example, Harel is one of the
Harel is
private
one of
companies.
Right, right. So I have Harel, but it gives me basic lead service. Because I'm like, I have
What we
a
have as well.
visa probably.
That's what you have?
Yeah, we have with the international
Yeah.
school.
Yeah, and you have the same
that's what
thing.
we have.
Right.
That's what I buy as well. Good
It's,
choice.
I mean, it's good, it covers everything, everything that that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, now, let's go back. So, 3 levels of care. 3 levels of care. The third level, the people who are educated enough and wealthy enough will buy it, and those who are well informed say they don't really need it, but they have it anyway. Okay?
And there's a fourth level that's not insurance, but that's the totally private market. A third of medicine in Israel today is completely private. It's a 2-tier system. For example, I work in my private practice twice a week. It's out of pocket. So I see clients, and at the end of the visit, they pay the secretary money that, it's no insurance. So in addition to those 3, a third of the overall money generated by the health system in Israel today is completely private.
How much is an appointment in Israel?
I'd rather not answer that, but no, it depends.
I mean, like in Canada, there's like a standard fee depending
No,
on
it
province.
depends. It's the private part is completely capitalistic.
Okay.
It depends on your professional status, on where you work.
Yeah.
But in psychiatry, it can be anywhere between 600 to 2,500 shekels
Wow, okay.
For a visit.
for a visit. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
But you still pass through an insurance, or you pay straight?
No, you pay. You literally pay. Credit card, cash, you pay.
So, that's a pure capitalist fourth.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Now, let's go back to a little more of the structure. Well, let me say one more thing. I'm sorry. These are kind of random, really. One of the reasons I didn't want to bother to study the Israeli healthcare system when I got started is all this complexity. If you go to a hospital in the afternoon, the doctors are all gone. Okay, all the medical doctoring work is done in the morning because they've got 2 or 3 more jobs to get to that day, right? So in the morning they'll be in the hospital, in the afternoon they'll be in one of the HMO clinics. Then they may go to a second clinic, and then they may go to their own private clinic, or maybe they skip the second clinic and they just have their private hours. So the physicians are running around like crazy. They net a reasonably okay income, by going to all these different jobs. So it's a very confusing, as an outsider, it's pretty confusing to see. Crazy.
Yeah, I just had a question. It might be personal. How are you all able to take classes and stuff while still working as doctors? And
For me personally, I'm going back to my job in a month.
oh, okay.
I'm on a break,
Oh, okay.
but I wouldn't have the time. There's no way. I work a full-time job.
Yeah.
I'm planning on lowering it to half
Oh, okay.
my hours to have to cut it now.
I think the same would probably be said for Gil. He's the head of department of ENT, and I'm deputy director of a hospital, so as part of our work, our academic Advanced, you go out and study. I mean, if you do 1-2 days a week for a year or two, you can go out. The hospital pays me while I'm here.
If I want to study something, because I'm a governmental employee, if I want to study, they can give me one day paid by the Ministry of Health that I can study anything I want. It depends. There's a whole bureaucracy behind this, and it's long. And it's funded by the Ministry of Health. But it's really restricted. If you wanna study something for 1 day a week, it won't be the FDH or anything like that.
But actually, that's the way, like I don't know how it is in the States, but actually every state or every company should support the healthcare people to continue studying.
Right.
Like it's actually in their own interest, like that they actually, I mean, some places they also pay for this. Like
I have to admit that in my hospital, one of the things we established is that every psychiatric resident can go to the university for continuous medical education once a week for the full 4.5 years of his education. It's part of that.
But that's the way it should be. Like I think that's.
We do have a mandatory CME for everybody, almost in all Qubbat Halim. All doctors have a mandatory CME at least once a month, once a week sometimes.
Okay, so let's just do a little more and then we'll move on. Okay? So, in this country, the government does not run the healthcare system. It doesn't pay for the healthcare system. The government, through the Ministry of Health, regulates and provides tax funds to pay for a lot of the healthcare. I don't know how much.
Well, one of the maybe I'll say two things. First of all, that the way it's funded is that every Israeli, every person working in Israel pays 5% of his income to health tax. So it's a progressive tax, and it seems as if it's for free, but 5% can be quite a bit.
Yeah.
So it's very far from being for free when you add up the numbers.
Right.
5% of a lot is a lot.
We're going to talk about insurance later today, and it's common for countries, and you're learning this and you're presenting it, countries will say, well, some of our money comes from this tax, and some of it comes from that tax, and some of it comes from this tax. Realistically, does it matter? If you're paying taxes, you're paying taxes. It's
Right.
coming in from the government. But the government will say, well, this is our healthcare tax, and this comes out of general funds. You know, it's kind of, it's politics. It's political presentation that controls how people perceive their healthcare is being paid for. Taxes are taxes, okay? In Israel, the first level of care is paid for primarily by taxation. The second level of care is going to be paid by employers or employees or both. Third level of care is going to be primarily employer people,
Yeah.
right? Now, the money goes into something called a sick fund, okay? And when you look at most of Western Europe, as you're studying your countries and reporting on them, what you're going to find is that they talk about sick funds. And sick funds in Europe are what we would generally call NGOs, non-government organizations, or in the U.S., non-profit organizations, okay? Which is to say that they're run as a quasi-business. There's no attempt to make a profit. There are no shareholders. These are organizations that are created more or less by the government. Government stimulates their creation, whether it's here or in other countries. They serve as this intermediary so that the government doesn't quite have its fingers in the operational aspects of healthcare. Also, information is protected, so the government doesn't have direct access to your healthcare information, whereas the sick funds do.
It does.
Can I add two things?
Yeah.
One is just on the structure that, at least in Israel, the minority of hospitals actually belong to the sick funds. The majority belong directly to the Ministry of Health.
Right.
So that makes it even a bit
Yeah,
more
a little more
complex. So
complicated.
we
Right.
do have organized data because the Ministry of Health collects all the data primarily from its own hospitals, but also things like certificates of death, things like that. So I do a lot of epi research with the Ministry of Health. So we do have population-based data,
Right.
which gets to the Ministry of Health through those avenues.
So, right. But generally, the Ministry of Health can't go and find out about the health status of a citizen, or can it?
No, only if he was hospitalized, and during the hospitalization, the individual received a diagnosis. That diagnosis is moved on. What we're working on today is a national pharmaceutical database. It started out with problems, for example, mimicking the opioid epidemic in the States, double doctoring, buying from more than one pharmacy. So the Ministry of Health is working on trying to organize one database in which no matter where you buy your medications, if it's prescription medication, then it'll eventually get to the Ministry of Health level.
And I'm just going to say another couple things about data. Let me go back to this for a minute, and we heard this already, but there are 4 sick funds in Israel.
Sick funds also like HMO.
Yes,
Yeah.
and in Israel they're called HMOs. So Clalit, Maccabi, the other 2
Yeah,
are.
מאוחדת and לאומית.
Okay, so these are the 4 sick. This is a spontaneous presentation on Israeli healthcare system.
But that fact that the Ministry of Health owns the hospitals is complex because they're both the regulator and the provider of healthcare, and sometimes there are quite a few conflicts there.
Right, so I was just going to get to this. So, in Israel, most of the hospitals are public hospitals. They're owned by the government. There are a few private hospitals, Hadassah hospitals, probably, right?
Hadassah and Shaare. Hadassah and Shaare Tzedek. Assuta is not the hospital.
It is.
No, Assuta is a place which you can rent rooms and you can do operation. It's not a hospital.
But the new one will
does
be.
marketing as a hospital. It's not a hospital. But Hadassah and Shaare Tzedek is a real hospital, and there's now a hospital in Ashdod who owns by Assuta, which is a real hospital.
And Carmel Hospital here in Haifa is owned by Clalit,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
So it is, so you have this mix. So you have the sick funds owning a hospital like Clalit, like Carmel, I assume there are some others. The government owns most of the big hospitals, and then there are a few private hospitals, truly private, okay? Most of the clinics that provide the first level of care and the second level of care are owned by the sick funds. Right? And then the third and fourth levels of care are privately owned, the facilities. The doctors, as we've said, have different employments. So, doctor is an employee of the hospital, which is to say public hospital, it makes them a public employee, government employee. They're employed by the clinic, which means the sick fund, and then they're going to make private money too, maybe. Okay. And it's even more complex because some are professors, but you get paid to be a professor not by the medical school here, but by the hospital, right? That's part of your
Yeah,
salary.
for the most part.
And
Comes
it's
from the hospital.
university.
Yeah. Yeah, in the States, it's very different. We're not going to get
No.
into that stuff, okay? All right.
And if your residency is funded by the sick fund, you have to serve for 5 years after you finish your
Okay.
residency. In the
Right.
same, and you cannot have it any other way. You have to give these 4 or 5 years, and then after that you can choose where to work.
One more point, and then we're going to stop. Okay. The sick funds, the 4 of them, which are called HMOs, have very big databases, clinical databases. Okay? They are, as far as I'm concerned, some of the most advanced clinical databases in the world. I'm not aware of any that are more sophisticated. There may be. Maybe the Scandinavian countries. I've mentioned Sweden has a comprehensive database of its population. And it's possible that some other countries do. The United States, for example, does not. Okay? So here, a patient of Clalit can go online and get their entire health record. And likewise, a medical provider can, with some effort, get virtually all of the medical information about a patient, right? Even if they go to this hospital, that hospital, this clinic, that. Then, hold on one second. Then, the sick fund can also aggregate data and do population-based analysis. Okay, which is something that we in public health are very interested in, health services research and the practical use of data. It's there. And this is kind of I think the cutting edge for Israel is, what do you do with this clinical data? How do you analyze it? How do you improve healthcare delivery? And that's, I think, where a lot of energy is coming out of the HMOs.
Yes, in fact, some of you might know, I was interacting with Professor Ron Barisar from the Clalit Research Institute.
Right. Great example.
And it works a lot with big data.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like developing systems, so translating that data, because there's a lot of data, and translating that data into some sort of innovation. You know, so yes.
So in the U.S., if you're looking for a model that matches simply the HMOs,
Kaiser, right?
Kaiser, okay? Kaiser, generally on the west coast of the United States, is very similar in all sorts of ways. And probably is the best healthcare delivery system in the United States. It is a little on the mean, M-E-A-N, not mean isn't cruel, but average side of healthcare delivery, whereas the fancy places like the Mayo Clinic, the Cleveland Clinic, others like that probably provide more sophisticated care for people who have special health problems. If you've got high blood pressure, you're probably better off at Kaiser than you are at the Cleveland Clinic. And then Ronnie, then Isabel, and then we'll stop, okay?
More a hypothetical question. So is this number 4, is this fixed? Is it like, is it almost a law? Or could now say someone, I want to establish a new HMO?
No, someone could. There was even talk about it a
Okay.
while ago. Almost all of them end each year in quite a bit of deficit. Has a lot to do with the financial system, the capitation system. So I don't know how much people really want to wet their feet with that, but it's definitely not fixed.
Okay.
Every sick fund has an office in every hospital in the country. The data is updated by the minute. You can know if your patient is being treated in the emergency room right now online. This is an excellent thing, and because of that, everything is documented. You can know where your patient was anywhere at any specialist. So the extraction of data is really easy. It's becoming even easier. I mean, last time I worked in primary care was in 2004. It's been developed tremendously. I just want to note something, that we have a strict gatekeeping system,
Right.
for the most part. You can go by yourself without any referral to the ENT, ophthalmologist, gynecologist, or surgeon. Other than that, even for an X-ray, you need a referral from the GP. And there is newly established whole system of hotline on all 4 sick funds, that people can get a referral to the emergency room, or an ambulance, or a nurse, pediatrician, a gynecologist, and a family doctor on hotline for every sick fund all through the day. I mean, after hours.
So the point that Ronnie is making, a couple things. One is, I'm going to restate my basic contention about the Israeli healthcare system. You get the healthcare you need, not the healthcare you want. Okay? You want to pay those extra things, then you get the healthcare you want. But you get the healthcare you need, so that when all is said and done, it's 8% of the GDP, and you have one of the healthiest nations in the world. Now, it's also a Mediterranean country. Okay, the diet has traditionally been a Mediterranean diet. There's much more obesity in Israel than there was some years ago. Those numbers are probably going to be challenged over the next generation, but in the meantime, it's a healthy population. Okay, we had two other people who want to, Isabella? Okay, I guess you get the last two.
We learned that the model in Israel is the national health insurance system.
Yes.
How does it differ from